The ship came out of nowhere. One moment, the sky above Earth was empty. The next moment, a massive vessel hung in orbit like a dark moon. It was silver and smooth, shaped like a teardrop, and it was bigger than any building humans had ever made. Captain Kim Taiho stood on the bridge of the orbital station and watched the alien ship through the observation window. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. He had trained for many years to stay calm in difficult moments, but nothing had prepared him for this. "They are requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Yoon Min-ho from behind him. His voice was tight with tension. Should I deny them? Taiho thought about it. Earth had no weapons that could stop a ship that size. If these aliens wanted to destroy humanity, they could do it easily. Refusing them would only make things worse. "Let them come," Taiho said. "And get Dr. Park up here. She needs to see this." Dr. Park Soo-jin arrived 10 minutes later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and messy hair. She had spent her whole life studying the possibility of alien life. Now that possibility was becoming real, and she looked like she might faint from excitement. "This is really happening," she whispered. "After all these years, this is really happening." The alien ship connected to the station's docking port with a soft sound. Taiho, Minho, and Soo-jin walked to the airlock and waited. The door opened with a hiss of air. The aliens were tall. That was the first thing Taiho noticed. They stood almost 7 feet high, with pale blue skin and long limbs. Their faces were smooth, almost like masks, with large eyes that seemed to look through everything. They wore robes of deep purple that flowed like water when they moved. There were 5 of them. 4 stood in a line behind the 5th, who was clearly their leader. She was female, or at least she looked female. Her eyes were lighter than the others, almost white, and there was something strange about the way she looked at them. It was like she was listening to something that nobody else could hear. "I am Litha," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "I am a mind singer of the Valorian people. We have come to greet you." Taiho stepped forward and gave a small bow. "I am Captain Kim Taiho. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I welcome you." Litha smiled. It was a cold smile, the kind of smile that did not reach her eyes. "Thank you, Captain. We have watched your species for some time. Your signals reached us many years ago. We decided it was time to meet you face to face." Soo-jin was almost shaking with excitement. "We have so many questions. Your technology, your biology, your culture. There is so much we want to learn. We wish to learn about you," Litha said. "That is why I am here. I am a telepath. Among my people, this is a great honor. I can touch the minds of others and understand them completely." Taiho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Touch our minds." "Do not worry," Litha said. "It is painless. It is how we communicate. It is how we understand new species. I will simply read your surface thoughts. You will not even feel it." Before Taiho could respond, Litha stepped forward. She raised one long, thin hand toward his face. Her fingers were only inches from his skin. Minho moved to stop her, but Taiho held up his hand. They were in no position to fight. If this was how the aliens wanted to communicate, then he would allow it. He had nothing to hide. Litha's fingers touched his temple. For a moment, nothing happened. Litha's white eyes stared into his. Her face was calm and confident. Then everything changed. Litha's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. Her whole body began to shake, like she was being electrocuted. The other Valorians rushed forward, but they were too late. Litha screamed. It was not a normal scream. It was a sound of pure terror, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her soul. She fell backward, her body hitting the floor hard. Her arms and legs twitched. Violet blood began to flow from her ears and nose. "What did you do?" One of the Valorians shouted. He grabbed Taiho by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "What did you do to her?"
"Nothing."
Taiho choked out. "I did not do anything." Minho pulled his weapon, but more Valorians grabbed him. Soo-jin backed against the wall, her face white with fear. On the floor, Litha stopped moving. Her body went still. Her eyes were open but empty. For a terrible moment, everyone thought she was dead. Then she took a breath. A weak, shallow breath. But she was alive. The Valorian holding Tai-Ho dropped him to the floor. "Get her back to the ship," he ordered the others. Now, they picked up Litha's body and carried her toward the airlock. The leader turned back to look at the humans. His face was full of anger and confusion, and something else. Something that looked like fear. "This is not over," he said. "We will return, and you will explain what you have done." The airlock closed. The alien ship disconnected from the station and moved away, disappearing into the darkness of space as quickly as it had appeared. Tai-Ho sat on the floor, rubbing his throat where the alien had grabbed him. Minho helped him stand up. "What the hell just happened?" Minho asked. Tai-Ho shook his head. "I do not know. She touched my mind, and then she just broke." Sujin was still staring at the airlock door. Her scientific mind was racing, trying to understand what she had just seen. "She was a telepath," Sujin said slowly. "She has probably read thousands of minds, maybe millions. And when she touched yours, something about it hurt her. Something about the human mind caused her to collapse." "But what?" Tai-Ho asked. "What could possibly be in my head that would do that to her?" Nobody had an answer. The three of them stood in silence, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the aliens were planning their next move. And somewhere in the human mind was a secret that even the humans themselves did not understand. Whatever it was, it had saved them today. But Tai-Ho could not shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. 3 days passed. 3 days of waiting and worrying. 3 days of not knowing if the aliens would return with weapons or with words. Dr. Park. Sujin had not slept much during those 3 days. She had spent every hour in the medical bay, watching over the alien called Litha. The Valorians had left her behind. Maybe they thought she was dying. Maybe they wanted to see what the humans would do. Nobody knew for sure, but Sujin had refused to let her die. She had worked with machines she did not fully understand. She had studied the alien's strange biology. She had done everything she could to keep the mind singer alive. On the morning of the 3rd day, Litha opened her eyes. Sujin was sitting in a chair beside the medical bed, half asleep. The soft sound of movement woke her. She looked up and saw the alien staring at her. Litha's white eyes were different now. Before they had been cold and confident. Now there was something else in them. Something that Sujin had never expected to see in an alien face. "Fear, where am I?" Litha asked. Her voice was weak, like she had been screaming for hours. "You are still on our station," Sujin said. "You collapsed. Do you remember?" Litha closed her eyes. Her whole body seemed to shake with the memory. I remember everything." "What happened? When you touched Captain Tai-Ho's mind, what did you experience?" For a long moment, Litha did not answer. She just lay there, breathing slowly, trying to find the words. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I have touched 10,000 minds," she said. "I have read the thoughts of emperors and slaves, of scientists and soldiers, of children and the dying. Every mind I have ever touched has been like a quiet pond, clear and still, easy to see through, easy to understand." She opened her eyes and looked at Sujin. "Your captain's mind was not a pond. It was an ocean." "An ocean in a storm?" Sujin did not understand. "What do you mean?" "When I entered his mind, I expected to find one voice, one stream of thought. That is what minds are supposed to be. But your captain, he had thousands of voices, thousands of thoughts, all of them speaking at once, all of them fighting for attention." Litha sat up slowly, her body still weak. He was thinking about our meeting, but he was also thinking about his childhood, about his mother's cooking, about a girl he loved when he was young, about a soldier who died under his command, about a song he heard once and could not forget, about his fear of failure, about his hope for peace, about the taste of coffee, about the color of the sunset on his home planet. She grabbed Sujin's arm. Her grip was tight, almost desperate. All of these thoughts were happening at the same time, not one after another, all at once. like 1,000 people screaming in a room that was too small. Sujin pulled back, surprised. That is just how human minds work. We think about many things at once. We always have. Litha stared at her like she had said something impossible. No species thinks like that. No species in the entire galaxy. The mind is supposed to be focused, pure, one thought at a time. That is the natural way. Maybe it is the natural way for your species, Sujin said, but not for us. The door to the medical bay opened. Captain Taiho and Lieutenant Minho walked in. They had been watching through the window, waiting for Litha to wake up. Taiho stood at the foot of her bed. You tried to read my mind without my permission? My people would call that an attack. Litha looked at him. There was no more arrogance in her face, no more superiority, just exhaustion and confusion. I have read minds for 300 years, she said. It is what mind singers do. We read minds the way you breathe air. I did not think it would hurt me. I did not think anything could hurt me, but something did, Minho said. He was standing by the door, his hand near his weapon. He did not trust the alien. What was it? What about the captain's mind made you scream? Litha looked at her hands. They were still shaking. It was not just the number of thoughts. It was the contradictions. Your captain feels love and anger at the same time. Hope and fear together. Happiness and sadness mixed into one feeling that has no name in my language. She looked up at Taiho. How do you do that? How do you hold opposite things inside you without breaking apart? Taiho thought about the question. He had never really considered it before. It was just how humans were. Everyone felt conflicting emotions. Everyone had complicated thoughts. It was normal. We just do, he said. We have always been this way. We thought everyone was. Litha shook her head slowly. No, you are alone. In all the galaxy, no species has minds like yours. The Valorians have ruled for 10,000 years because we can read any mind. We can predict any action. We can see any plan before it is made. She paused. Her white eyes were full of something new. Something like respect, but we cannot read you. Your minds are too loud, too chaotic, too full. When I touched your captain's thoughts, it was like trying to drink a waterfall, like trying to hold fire in my hands. It was too much. It broke me. The room was silent. Taiho, Sujin, and Minho looked at each other. They were beginning to understand. For thousands of years, humans had seen their complicated minds as a weakness. Depression, anxiety, overthinking, internal conflict. These things had caused so much suffering. People wished for simpler minds, quieter thoughts, less noise in their heads. But now they were learning something new. Their messy, chaotic, contradictory minds were not a weakness. They were a weapon. And somewhere, out in the stars, an empire that had never known fear was about to learn what it felt like to face something they could not control. The message arrived 2 weeks later. Captain Taiho was in his office when the communication came through. The Valorian High Council wanted to meet. They were sending a new delegation. They promised it would be peaceful, but Taiho was not a fool. He had spent 2 weeks studying everything Litha had told them about her people. The Valorians had conquered dozens of worlds. They had built an empire that stretched across half the galaxy, and they had done it all with one weapon: their telepaths. If they were coming back, they were not coming for peace. They were coming to try again. Dr. Han-Nari arrived at the station the next day. She was Earth's best negotiator. She had ended wars, made impossible deals, and talked angry nations into putting down their weapons. If anyone could handle the Valorians, it was her. Taiho met her at the docking bay. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. But those kind eyes hid a sharp mind. Everyone who had ever sat across a table from her knew that she was not someone to underestimate. Captain, she said, shaking his hand. I read the reports. This is quite a situation. That is one way to put it, Taiho said. An alien empire wants to conquer us, and our only defense is that our brains are too messy to read. Nari smiled. I have been in worse situations. Not many, but a few. The Valorian ship arrived the next morning. It was larger than the first one, and it was not alone. Long-range sensors detected more ships hiding behind the moon. Many more ships, enough to destroy the entire planet. They brought a fleet, Minho reported, his face grim. At least 50 warships, maybe more. Taiho felt his stomach drop, but he kept his voice calm. They are just trying to scare us. If they wanted to attack, they would not be asking for a meeting. Or maybe the meeting is just to keep us busy while they get into position, Minho said. Maybe, Taiho admitted, but we have no choice. We have to play this out. The delegation came aboard an hour later. This time, there were only 2 aliens. One was a young Valorian who stayed silent and still, clearly a guard. The other was the oldest living thing Taiho had ever seen. His name was Varric, and he was ancient. His blue skin had faded to pale gray. His eyes were like twin suns, burning with power. When he walked, the air seemed to bend around him. He moved slowly, but every step felt heavy with meaning. "I am Elder Varric," he said. His voice was like stone grinding against stone. "I am the voice of the Valorian Council. I have broken the minds of kings. I have ended rebellions with a single thought. I have read the secrets of worlds." Stopped in front of Taiho and looked him up and down. "And I have come to understand why my student Litha fell." Litha was standing nearby, watching. She had chosen to stay on the station, to study humans. When Varric looked at her, she looked away. She was ashamed of her failure. Dr. Nari stepped forward. "Elder Varric, I am Han Nari, representing Earth. We welcome open communication between our peoples." Varric turned his burning eyes to her. "Communication? Yes, that is what we seek." He raised his hand toward her face. Nari did not move. She had been briefed. She knew what to expect. She stood perfectly still as the ancient telepath reached toward her mind. Taiho wanted to stop it. But this was the plan. They needed to know if Litha's experience was unique, or if all humans affected telepaths the same way. Varric's fingers touched Neris's temple. His eyes closed. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then Varric smiled. It was a cruel smile, the smile of a hunter who has found his prey. "I see you," he whispered. "I see everything." Nari's body tensed. Taiho took a step forward, ready to pull her away. But then something changed. Varric's smile disappeared. His burning eyes snapped open. His face twisted into an expression of shock and confusion. His hand began to tremble against Nari's skin. Nari was thinking about the negotiations. That was the first layer. But beneath that, she was thinking about her daughter's birthday next week. She was thinking about the cake she wanted to bake. She was thinking about her father's death 10 years ago. She was thinking about a poem she had memorized as a child. She was thinking about the smell of rain on hot pavement. She was thinking about her first love, her first heartbreak, her proudest moment, her deepest shame, all at once. All together, all mixed up in a storm of memory and feeling and thought. Varric pulled his hand away. He stumbled backward. His guard caught him before he could fall. The ancient telepath was breathing hard, his chest heaving like he had just run 1,000 miles. "How?" he gasped. "How do you live like this?" Nari blinked. She touched her temple where his fingers had been. She had felt something, a presence pushing into her thoughts. But it had not hurt. To her, it had just felt like a strange tickle in the back of her mind. "Live like what?" she asked. Varric stared at her with wide eyes. For 3,000 years, he had been the most powerful telepath in the galaxy. He had never met a mind he could not break. He had never met a species he could not understand. Until now. "Your minds are impossible," he said. "You think too much. You feel too much. You are chaos given form." Nari smiled politely. It was the same smile she used when enemy generals tried to intimidate her. "Thank you," she said. "We try our best." Varric looked at Litha. He finally understood why she had fallen. It was not weakness. It was not failure. It was because human minds were simply too much for any telepath to handle. The Valorians had finally found something they could not conquer. and that terrified them more than anything else in the universe. The negotiations continued for hours, but nothing was accomplished. The Valorians kept making demands. The humans kept refusing. It was clear that both sides were just waiting for something to happen. Finally, Elder Varric asked to speak with Captain Taiho alone. Taiho agreed. Minho protested, but Taiho waved him off. If Varric wanted to kill him, he could do it in front of everyone. There was no point in hiding. They walked together to the observation deck. It was a large room with windows that showed the stars in every direction. Earth floated below them, blue and green and beautiful. The Valorian war fleet was hidden somewhere out there in the darkness. Waiting, Varric stood at the window and looked out at the stars. His burning eyes reflected the distant lights like tiny flames. "I have lived for 3,000 years," he said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars be born and die. I have read the minds of creatures from 100 worlds." He turned to look at Taiho. "But I have never met anything like your species." Taiho stood with his hands behind his back. "Is that why you brought a war fleet? Because you have never met anything like us?" Varric was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost honest. "I brought the fleet because I was afraid," he admitted. "When Litha sent her report, I did not believe it. A mind singer falling to a simple scan. Impossible. I thought she was weak. I thought I could do what she could not. And now? Now I understand." Varric walked slowly along the window, looking at Earth below. "The Valorian Dominion has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Do you know how we built our empire? Not with weapons. Not with armies. With telepathy." He stopped and faced Taiho directly. "We could read every mind. We could see every plan before it was made. When an enemy thought about attacking us, we knew about it before they even finished the thought. When a rebellion began to form, we stopped it before the first meeting. When negotiations happened, we knew exactly what the other side wanted and how to manipulate them." "You cheated," Taiho said. "We survived," Varric replied. "And more than survived. We dominated. Because knowledge is power, and we knew everything." Taiho nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. "But you cannot know us. You cannot read our minds," Varric said. "We cannot. Your minds are too complex, too layered, too full of contradictions. When I touched your negotiators' thoughts, I expected to find one clear stream of consciousness. Instead, I found a hurricane. 1,000 thoughts spinning in every direction at once." He shook his head slowly. "I could not hold on to any single thought long enough to understand it. As soon as I grasped one, 100 others pulled my attention away. It was overwhelming. It was painful. It was like trying to hold water in my hands while standing under a waterfall." Taiho thought about this. He had always assumed that his busy mind was a problem. Too many thoughts. Too many worries. Too many feelings pulling him in different directions. He had spent years trying to quiet his mind, to focus, to be calm. But now he was learning that his chaos was a shield, a fortress that no telepath could break through. "I need to tell you something," Varric said. "Something that I am not supposed to tell you. Something that could start a war?" Taiho tensed. "I am listening." Varric looked old. Older than his 3,000 years. The weight of what he was about to say seemed to press down on his shoulders. "The Valorians have conquered many species," he said, "but we have never destroyed any of them. Do you know why? Because conquered species are useful. We can read their minds. We can control them. We can use them." He paused. "But your species is different. We cannot read you. We cannot control you. We cannot predict what you will do, and that makes you dangerous." "Dangerous to your empire," Taiho said. "Dangerous to everything we have built," Varric agreed. "There are voices on the council who want to destroy your world before you become a threat. They want to burn your planet to ash while you are still young and weak, before you spread to other worlds. Before you become unstoppable." Taiho felt cold. "And what do you want?" Varric was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I want to understand. 3,000 years I have lived, and I have never felt what I felt when I touched your negotiator's mind. The chaos. The contradictions. The thousand feelings all tangled together. He looked at Taiho with something like wonder. Your species feels love and hate at the same time. Hope and despair. Joy and sorrow. You hold opposites inside you, and somehow you do not break apart. You carry weights that would crush any Valorian, and you call it normal. Taiho did not know what to say. He had never thought of human emotions as special. Everyone had complicated feelings. Everyone struggled with conflicting thoughts. It was just part of being alive. That is exactly the point, Varric said, as if reading his thoughts through expression alone. To you, it is normal. To us, it is impossible. Valorians think in straight lines, one thought at a time, one feeling at a time, clean, pure, ordered. Look back out at the stars. We thought we were the most advanced minds in the galaxy. We thought clarity was strength. But now I wonder if we were wrong. Maybe clarity is just emptiness. Maybe your chaos is what makes you alive. Taiho joined him at the window. They stood side by side, human and alien, looking out at the universe. What happens now? Taiho asked. Now I go back to the council, Varric said, and I tell them what I have learned. I tell them that attacking humanity would be suicide. Not because you have weapons, not because you have technology, but because we would be fighting blind. He turned to face Taiho one last time. For 10,000 years, we have seen every move our enemies made before they made it. Against you, we would see nothing. We would be like children fighting in the dark. And if the council does not listen, Varric's ancient eyes were tired. Then we will learn why the galaxy should never have ignored the small blue world called Earth. The Valorian Council met on their homeworld, far across the galaxy. The chamber was ancient, built 10,000 years ago when the Dominion was first formed. The walls were carved with the names of every world they had conquered. There was space for many more names. There had always been space for more. Elder Varric stood before the council and gave his report. He told them about the human minds. He told them about the chaos, the contradictions, the thousand thoughts all happening at once. He told them about Letha's collapse and his own failure to read the negotiator cleanly. When he finished speaking, the chamber was silent. The council members looked at each other with expressions of disbelief and fear. This is impossible, said one of the younger members. No species can resist our mind singers. Perhaps Varric has simply grown old. Perhaps his powers have weakened. Varric did not argue. He simply gestured to Litha, who stood at the edge of the chamber. Ask her. She touched the human first. She is young and strong. And their minds broke her in seconds. Litha stepped forward. She was still not fully recovered. Her hand still shook sometimes, especially at night when the memories came back. The humans are different, she said. Their minds are not like ours. They are not like any species we have ever encountered. When I touched the captain's thoughts, it was like stepping into a storm. Storm of memories and feelings and ideas, all spinning together, all crashing into each other. She looked around the chamber. I have trained my entire life. I have read the minds of rebels and traitors and enemies. None of them hurt me. But one human, one single human with nothing special about him, nearly killed me without even trying. The council argued for hours. Some wanted to attack Earth immediately, before the humans could grow stronger. Others wanted to retreat and watch from a distance. A few suggested trying to make peace. In the end, Varric spoke the final words. As the oldest and most powerful telepath, his voice carried the most weight. If we attack, he said, we will be fighting blind. We will not know their plans. We will not know their strategies. We will not know what they are thinking. For 10,000 years, we have won every battle because we could see into the minds of our enemies. Against humans, we will see nothing. He stood up, his ancient body slow, but his voice strong. And there is something else. Something I did not put in my report. The council leaned forward. When I touched the human negotiator's mind, Varric continued, I felt something I have never felt before. Pain, yes. Confusion, yes. But also beauty. The way humans think, the way they feel multiple things at once. It is terrifying, but it is also magnificent. He paused. They carry grief and joy in the same heartbeat. They hold love and fear together, like two hands clasped. They experience life with an intensity that we cannot imagine. And somehow, they do not break. They call it normal. They call it being human. Varric looked around the chamber one last time. We are the Valorians. We're the masters of the mind. But perhaps mastery is not about control. Perhaps it is about depth. And in that way, the humans have surpassed us. The vote was close, but in the end, the council decided the Warfleet would withdraw. Earth would be left alone. The Dominion would watch from a distance, waiting to see what humanity would become. Back on the orbital station, the news arrived like a sunrise after a long night. Captain Taiho read the message 3 times before he believed it. The Valorians were leaving. Earth was safe. Minho stood beside him, reading over his shoulder. I do not understand. They had us outgunned. They could have destroyed us easily. Why did they back down? Taiho smiled. Because for the first time in 10,000 years, they were scared. Dr. Sujin was in the medical bay with Litha. The alien telepath had asked to stay, and the council had allowed it. She wanted to study humans, to understand them, to learn how they lived with their chaotic minds. I still do not understand you, Litha said. She was sitting on the edge of a medical bed, watching as Sujin organized equipment. Your minds should not work. You should be paralyzed by all those thoughts and feelings. You should be torn apart by all those contradictions. Sujin shrugged. Sometimes we are. Sometimes the weight of everything becomes too heavy. Sometimes we break. But you put yourselves back together. We try, Sujin said. Not always successfully, but we try. Litha was quiet for a moment. Among my people, a broken mind is a tragedy. It means the end of a telepath's career, the end of their worth. But among your people, I have seen broken minds stand up again. I have seen people who have suffered terrible things find ways to laugh and love and hope. She looked at Sujin with something like wonder. How? How do you do that? Sujin thought about the question. She thought about all the patients she had treated, all the trauma she had seen, all the recoveries that seemed impossible until they happened. I think it is because we know we are not alone, she finally said. We carry our chaos together. We share our pain with others. We lean on each other when we cannot stand by ourselves. No human survives alone. We survive together. The news of the Valorian retreat spread across the galaxy. Other species heard about the world that could not be read, the minds that broke the mind singers. Some were curious, some were hopeful, some were afraid. In the years that followed, Earth would change the galaxy. Not through weapons or conquest, but through the simple fact of what they were. A species that thought too much, felt too much, and somehow survived anyway. A species that turned chaos into creativity, contradiction into art, and pain into wisdom. On the observation deck, Captain Taiho stood with Dr. Nari and Lieutenant Minho, watching the Valorian fleet disappear into the stars. What happens now? Nari asked. Taiho looked at the Earth below, the small blue world that had accidentally terrified an empire. Now we live, he said. We think our messy thoughts. We feel our complicated feelings. We argue with ourselves and each other, love and hate and hope and fear, all at the same time, just like we always have. He smiled. Apparently, that is enough to shake the galaxy. In the medical bay, Litha watched as Officer Kung Juan comforted a crying colleague while cracking a small joke. She watched as engineer Beek Yunji cursed at a broken machine with tears and love in her eyes at the same time. She watched humans live their impossible lives, and for the first time in her 300 years, the mind singer who had touched 1,000 minds realized that she had never truly seen one until she met the humans. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would she.